A wave of foreclosures sweeps across Baltimore, a suspected $100 million fraud scheme orchestrated from New York, and a once-hot housing market showing clear signs of a cool-down. This isn't just a story about real estate, it's a story about neighborhoods, investors, and a city at a crossroads. In October 2025, the pieces of a complex puzzle are finally falling into place. A puzzle of easy money, sophisticated deception, and the collateral damage left behind. This is the Baltimore Real Estate Report. The headline is stark, and the numbers are staggering. In the third quarter of 2025, foreclosures in the Baltimore metro area surged 26% compared to the previous period. Year over year, they were up 11%, but these numbers are just the symptom. The cause, according to a months-long investigation by the Baltimore Banner, is a sophisticated real estate fraud ring. At the center of the scheme are New York-based investors Eluser Gold and Benjamin Idlis, and their company, EGBE Ventures. The group's strategy was simple and devastatingly effective. They targeted majority black neighborhoods, areas historically starved of investment, and went on a buying spree. Their weapon of choice? The Debt Service Coverage Ratio Loan, or DSCR. A DSCR loan is designed for investors. Instead of being based on the borrower's personal income, it's approved based on the projected rental income of the property itself. It's a product that, in theory, can fuel the rehabilitation of rental stock. But in practice, in this case, it became the engine for fraud. The New York group purchased more than 700 homes, largely using DSCR loans, but they weren't buying at market value. Court documents and property records reveal they were paying massively inflated prices. In one glaring example, the group bought a townhouse for $100,000, a property that had sold for just $13,000 only 5 years earlier. For that deal, they secured a loan for $220,000. Where did the excess money go? The Banner's investigation found that most of these surplus funds flowed to an LLC controlled by Benjamin Idlis, and there is a glaring lack of evidence that the promised renovations ever took place. Of the hundreds of properties tied to the group, more than 70% showed no record of renovation permits since 2019. Despite claims of significant improvements, less than a quarter of the portfolio had even paid a water bill in 2025. The result was inevitable. The projected rental income never materialized. The houses fell into disrepair, and now, over half of the 700 property portfolio is in foreclosure. This isn't just a financial crisis for the lenders, it's a human crisis for the tenants living in those properties, now facing displacement, and for the neighborhoods now dotted with vacant, deteriorating houses. So, how did this happen on such a massive scale? How did dozens of private lenders from across the country collectively hand over more than $100 million? The answer, according to industry experts, is a scheme that intentionally circumvented the safeguards of the lending system. Pete Mills, a senior vice president at the Mortgage Bankers Association, was unequivocal. He stated that this was not mortgage fraud, but real estate fraud. A sophisticated scheme where the buyers worked with complicit appraisers and title company actors. They intentionally skirted protocols and documentation that lenders rely on to protect themselves. In short, the system was gamed. The lenders in this narrative are victims. One lender, RCN Capital, publicly stated it was among those deceived. They called the group bad actors, who deliberately studied the processes of reputable lenders to exploit vulnerabilities in the system. These lenders in turn had sold these loans to funds managed by some of the world's largest private equity firms and life insurers. Now, those massive financial institutions are also facing tens of millions of dollars in losses. The response from authorities has been hampered by circumstance. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland did not comment, citing the ongoing federal government shutdown. The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office did not respond to inquiries. But the state is taking notice. Maryland Secretary of Housing and Community Development, Jake Day, said his office is tracking the affected properties and coordinating with local partners to mitigate the damage. He called it a predatory scheme, but was quick to add that it is not representative of the overall Baltimore home acquisition and renovation market. He reaffirmed the state's 15-year vision to eliminate vacancy in the city. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Department of Housing and Community Development is examining the bankrupt entities for possible involvement in appraisal fraud and other violations, vowing to hold them accountable where possible. The immediate fallout from the collapse was a seismic shock to the entire private lending ecosystem in Baltimore. As the spring wave of foreclosures began, Wall Street-backed financiers took action. At least 5 major lenders blacklisted the New York buyers, their associates, and their affiliated entities. And they didn't just stop there. They paused all DSCR lending in Baltimore. The spigot of cash was turned off. This had immediate consequences for legitimate investors. Take Dante Carroll, a Baltimore native with 25 years in real estate. He had just purchased a house with a DSCR loan in March, renting it out to young adults in Northeast Baltimore. In June, he got a call from his mortgage broker. His plans to buy another property were dead. Baltimore was off limits. Carroll, a booster for the city, was frustrated. He wanted to invest, to be part of the solution, but the actions of a few had frozen him, and countless others out. This freeze is a critical moment for the DSCR product itself. Professor Vadim Elenev of Johns Hopkins Carey Business School noted that, in theory, there's no obvious problem with the product itself. Provided the underwriting is done well, it can be a sound strategy for spurring growth in communities where cash flow is otherwise negligible. The problem, everyone agrees, isn't the loan, it's the bad actors, and the data shows just how central DSCR loans had become. According to a Banner analysis, these loans went from contributing roughly 10% of loan dollars backing single-family rental properties in Baltimore in 2019 to about 40%, more than $150 million just last year. This was a major source of capital, now suddenly gone. For investors like Carroll, the freeze was temporary, but telling. He eventually found a lender later in the summer who agreed to give him a DSCR loan. But his experience highlights the new, more cautious reality in Baltimore's investment market. But the story in Baltimore and Maryland is bigger than one fraud scheme. The entire housing market is undergoing a significant shift. Data from the Maryland Association of Realtors shows a clear cooling. Densely populated areas like Baltimore City, Montgomery, Howard, and Prince George counties are seeing significant decreases in the number of homes sold. In Prince George's County, home sales are down 22% this year. Terry Leigh Blewett knows this firsthand. She put her nearly 6-acre property in Accokeek on the market last year for just under $1 million. She thought it would sell in a week. A year later, after multiple price cuts, she's had maybe 10 people come to see it. Nationally, the trend is similar. Homes are sitting on the market longer. According to Zillow, the median is now 27 days, a full week longer than in 2024. Cheryl Abrams Davis, the 2025 president of the Maryland Association of Realtors, points to a perfect storm: a lack of affordable housing, homeowners locked into ultra-low pandemic-era interest rates, and a hesitancy from buyers facing higher rates. The result? A market that is righting itself. Christina De Pasquale, an economist at Johns Hopkins University, explains that while sales are down, prices are still inching up in Maryland. The state has only about 2.5 months of supply of inventory, well below the 6 months considered a balanced market. This isn't a buyer's bonanza, but a correction. De Pasquale notes that housing prices had outpaced income increases for years, a situation that was simply not sustainable. The cooling is also visible in the metrics. The Zillow Market Heat Index for the Baltimore area hit 61 in August, its lowest point since December 2019, and just 6 points away from a neutral market. Realtor.com's hotness index for the region was 52, indicating a warm market that slightly favors buyers. Sellers and agents are adapting. Some are turning properties into rentals until the market improves. Others, like Baltimore realtor Jessica Daly, are having a strong year by leveraging private, off-market listings to find buyers in a low-inventory environment. So, what are we left with in Baltimore as we close October 2025? We have a city of dual realities. In one reality, a massive fraud has been uncovered, causing a foreclosure crisis that disproportionately affects majority black neighborhoods and has shaken the confidence of national lenders. The cleanup will take years. In another reality, the broader market is experiencing a necessary, if painful, correction. It's a move away from the unsustainable frenzy of recent years towards something more stable, albeit slower. And, in yet another reality, people like Dante Carroll continue to believe in the city. For him, and others, investing in Baltimore is about what he calls the double bottom line. It's not just about the money, it's, in his words, do good, be good. The road ahead is challenging. The lending freeze will take time to thaw. The vacant properties from the fraud scheme need new, responsible owners, and the overall market needs to find its new equilibrium. But state and city leaders maintain their commitment to a long-term vision. The predatory scheme, as damaging as it was, is viewed as an outlier. The goal remains to eliminate vacancy and build a stable, affordable housing market for all of Baltimore. The story of Baltimore's real estate is far from over. It's a story still being written, one house, one loan, one neighborhood at a time.